Hello, Arish, Fáilte go Music at Maddens. Welcome to our weekly podcast in the snug upstairs here in Maddens, the home of traditional music here in the heart of Belfast City. I'm Lynette Fay, and each week I get to have the chats with members of the traditional music family. No shortage of stories, no shortage of crack, and the beauty of this podcast is you never know where the conversation is going to lead. Thanks a million for listening, and if you are discovering the podcast for the first time, we have an ever-growing back catalogue of episodes, so have a listen, rate the podcast, and please subscribe. And we do need your help and your support to keep this going. So you can subscribe to our new Patreon. You'll find the details on our Instagram page, Music at Maddens, and for the price of a coffee or less than a pint, you can access exclusive performances from some of our guests and some special offers. So sign up now to be included in our ever-growing community. This week we have 2/3 of the vocal group True with us. They take their name from a trio of poet musicians from ancient Ulster. And the True were so revered that their stories were said to have come from them from the future, and they were considered as the gatekeepers to the other world. And I just think as Halloween approaches, I'm delighted to welcome the two of you. No doubt we'll get to the murder ballads at some point. Zach Triton and Donal Kearney are in the snug. Michael Mormika is the third member of the band. Where in the world is it?
Good question.
We actually don't know. where are you?
No, I think
If you've seen Michael Mormika, please contact us.
Get us through Instagram. Yeah, I think he was. He had a few things on this weekend, but he may or may not be in Germany at the minute. Okay. He's got a different project, and they're doing a bit of touring at the minute, so he's kind of back and forth. But you might catch him in the middle of the night someplace. You never know.
That's class. It's just because we always ask the question because he never seems to be present. Only when you are doing you're
just
recording.
In the moment of the gig for those like.
And when you're doing the
gigs.
He
actually he triple booked himself today, or was it a quadruple booking? He has done a quadruple booking before.
I love it. It's always the challenge of a band, isn't it? Getting everybody organised and into the same place at the one time. But with challenges, though, let's talk about superpowers and the strengths. And, you know, the beauty of True is that you are coming to songs from Ulster is at the core of what you do, but not exclusively. You're just influenced by everything. And I think it's the curiosity that you have for music from other places as well, which is... It just adds to your offering. But the songs and the music confirm completely different worlds and backgrounds. That's where you're all three of you come at it from in a different way. So by way of introduction, we might hear a little bit about those various backgrounds. So who wants to go first? Who wants to tell me about how they attacked these songs?
Yeah, I'll go. So we started True in 2017, and Donal and myself, we had met in another group. We were singing together, and we had the shared interest in arranging traditional songs together, just with the guitar. Whenever we had a spare moment backstage, or
this was with Anúna, was it?
It was, yeah.
So how did the two of you just kind of? How did you find each other in that way? You know, because Anúna has a very specific type of vocal group, and then there's the two of you jamming, you know, and thinking, here, what about this song, what about that one?
We met on the Ulster bus at Sprucefield, so that was magic, you know, from the start. No, we went to rehearsals.
Sponsored by TransLink.
we went to rehearsals, and we were singing the same line, actually singing the same parts for most of the time, so it's like a 6 to 8 part choir, basically. So you end up singing different lines and harmonising, and whether you're the low part or the high part. And we were touring to Japan and China and Canada and all across Europe. And I suppose in that context, you're getting a grasp of other people's voices. You know, it's a very tangible thing. Singing, it's very physical. And although you may not be like looking at someone on stage, they might be 6 feet away from you or even farther apart. And if anybody knows what Anúna does, it's a lot of movement, a lot of choreography, and you're moving like through concert halls and singing and trying to keep the lines and stuff. So a real sort of intimate knowledge of each other's voices. But then I suppose we had this shared desire to make more music along like local songs and maybe stories and folklore that we were just interested in or hearing at the time. And again, this was around 16, 17, maybe even earlier for a few years before that. And so this idea of a selection of songs that were Ulster songs arranged with voice as the main instrument, or two. We knew it was a 3-part project really. Big influence from Voice Squad and from other sort of folk groups that would be singing in a few parts harmony. Scara Bray, Young Tradition. So like we knew that was part of the identity. And so we met up in Millbank, which was Mike Marmika's studio. Zach was very friendly with him. He lived across the road.
Yes, so me and Donal were sort of flirting with this idea, but I was playing with Mike in various sort of rock and roll bands from when I was like 15, 16 years old. So I knew him very well, and he was my neighbour as well, growing up. But Mike and Donal had never met, and we were looking for the third voice, and Mike, in terms of traditional music, had never really been
No exposure
at all, really.
He had done an album with Alana Henderson, which wasn't traditional. I think there was 1 or 2 tracks on it just before. That's right, that.
Actually, yeah.
A little bit of overlap, but Michael's a great collaborator, and he does a lot of stuff, different genres and stuff. Doesn't really faze him. But yeah, in terms of upbringing, I think he said he hadn't heard he didn't hear a trad song until he was like 22 or something, he said.
But it's mad though, that lack of exposure though, in a way is, and I know traditional music wasn't your background either, Zach.
Yeah, exactly.
So in a way though, is that a superpower? Because you're coming at it completely differently, from a different take, different perspective, different understanding.
Absolutely, because yes, so I had a great music teacher in school, David Faulkner, so traditional music wasn't at the forefront in my life and in the music that I sort of grew up with. Although my dad, there would have been the odd Paul Brady album, Bothy Band, things like that floating around, but it wasn't sort of at the forefront. But then I had this great music teacher, David Faulkner, and so I was in the choir, and he would just, doing your GCSEs, whatever, he would just show you all this amazing music. And then when traditional music...
Couple of focal anish o locht ariha and fod crealta. Hatch on the Falls Road are proud sponsors of this week's Music at Maddens. Hatch is nestled along the charming Falls Road. It's not just a cafe, it's a thriving hub of warmth and community, and most importantly, exceptional food and drink. I know, I have tried it many times, and Hatch manages to capture the essence of Ireland while adding this lovely unique twist, using locally sourced ingredients that support farmers and producers, and the commitment to quality is what sets them apart and elevates a classic breakfast, lunch or dinner into a culinary experience. So beyond the delectable food and coffee, Hatch on the Falls Road is also a community space. It's where friends meet, families gather, and good conversations flow as freely as the coffee, and the welcoming atmosphere just invites you to sit back and relax and indulge in a little slice of life. So I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to visit Hatch on the Falls Road. Treat yourself to the best coffee and an unforgettable Irish breakfast. Experience the warmth of the staff, who are always ready to greet you with a smile and a recommendation. Avalon Guitars are proud to sponsor Music at Maddens. Still made by hand, still made to matter. And Avalon Guitars began with a simple belief that the soul of an instrument is shaped by the hands that built it. And in their workshop in Newton Ards in County Down, tradition and intuition guide every cut, carve and tap. There are no production lines, only luthiers, and every single piece of wood is chosen with care, every guitar voiced individually, every detail considered, not just for beauty, but for balance and for resonance and for feel. And Avalon guitars are played on stages and in studios across the world, but they're born in the quiet where craftsmanship still matters, built to last, built to inspire, built to become part of your story. AvalonGuitars.com for more details. Is it your music teacher?
Yes.
He exposed you to different stuff when you're doing your GCSEs? But like, what kind of music was it? And why was it landing with you? Why was it impacting on you?
Mm-hmm. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is I realised that why hadn't I been exposed to this music before, and then that's when, then with True, then sort of digging into that with the local stories and the local music.
The early sessions of True were us sitting around with a lot of listening to stuff, and it wasn't just trad and folk stuff. It was like just our favourite bands, like sticking on 9 Inch Nails or Radiohead or just anything that we loved, just to see, I suppose, the commonalities. You know, if you've never met someone, especially a musician, you sort of want to know where you overlap and where you don't. And then there's an openness there where maybe, you know, I wouldn't have listened to as much 9 Inch Nails, but then you start hearing it from Mike's ears, and when someone loves something, they talk about it, and then that makes its way into other musical ideas. I suppose it's similar with the trad stuff, where, you know, Mike always has fresh ears on it. So anytime we could, you know, Zach would have done months of research into like a local song from around Lisburn or like anywhere, you know, in County Antrim, and then brings it to the table, and there's an understanding from that point of view, but maybe around the rest of the group, we're sort of hearing it for the first time, or we're trying to get an access point into it. So that is very much part of what True is doing. We're starting from fresh ears. And I think probably with a lot of trad bands and groups, there's almost an acceptance that, like, this is the music, these are the songs. You don't even talk about why you're singing it, just it is part of the canon. This is a folk song. This is a great song, and it's not discussed. But we were saying, well, why would we do that one over that one? Why would we sing this at all? And a really good filter is when we might sing something, and again, it's for the first time, Mike will be like, he sort of give you a thumbs up or thumbs down, not directly, but there's always a little filter on what makes it through. Yeah,
you have to feel it. So Zach, you said something interesting there about you know, you were wondering why you haven't been exposed to this music when you were growing up, you know, in GCSE at school, and your teacher was maybe showing you a different path. So did you find out the why, or, you know, and then what was your opinion of that?
I suppose the why is that, you know, in this country, you're from a place, you don't listen, you know, that can set you on a path.
You're in your wee box.
And then I think that's when I decided that you actually you choose your own culture, and you can, and from that moment forward, that's how I've been sort of thinking about it. And that's why True's been so special to me, because it's all there for whoever wants it, and for you to do whatever you want with it. And that's been the most meaningful aspect.
How has it changed your life? Discovering traditional music, discovering the stories, becoming more connected. We're going to get into this in a bit more detail, but becoming more connected with the local. That's bound to have a massive impact on you.
It's when you're, you know, sometimes when you read, you know, in this day and age, we can think that we're very clever people, and we've got a few, you know, we've got it all worked out, and then you read some poetry from the 9th century, and then you're like, oh, I think the same thing, and that just blows your mind right open. And this sort of and then when it becomes even more special when it's local to your area, these sort of expressions of culture that you find so much meaning in, and when they're from where you're from, then you're like, all right, so we're all actually just connected, and this is just this deep underlying line between us all, and it's open for you to connect to at any time.
It's kind of like a black hole or something. It's like timeless. You go through it, and all of a sudden you're with that 9th century monk, or 300 years ago they're playing the same melody that you're trying to play, and it just it crosses these time barriers and connects us all in that sense. And I think that what Zach said there about creating your own culture, I think, and choosing your own culture, I think it's a very progressive thing to think, because a lot of people think it's inherited and you don't touch it, and you're merely just receiving culture and trying to keep it alive and then passing it on. But it's part of the same process. I think, you know, in order to keep it alive, you need to create it. You need to keep creating it, and otherwise it just doesn't have the cultural currency. So I think there's obviously in a city like Belfast, like there's such tension between those two lines, and like even, you know, Zach's relationship with the Irish language, speaking it now as he does, but having never spoken it as a child, like it was only as an adult coming to it for your own reasons. But then you look at like all the places where, you know, you grew up, where we all grew up, they all come from Irish language words.
It's all around
the
you.
language was already spoken. So, you know, there's all this stuff, and the language is is one of them. The music, the melodies, the stories, they're timeless. And I think the great stories are, you know, they're ancient. They don't have a time. I think, True has been just a way for us to access that and to try and translate it in, you know, musically, with influences like Radiohead, Nine Inch Nails, and just the other stuff, Voice Squad, Clannad, you know, just throwing it all into one and seeing how we want to make music.
Yeah,
And
it's been said of you that the only thing traditional about your music are the songs themselves. And listening to you now, that's so true. Haha, boom, boom. But oh my gosh, there's so much to unpick there, and you know, it's not lost on me that we're sitting here in Maddens today when we've recently lost the heavyweight of this world, who was Mankin McGann, who spoke to everything you've just said, and inherently proud of who he was, recognising he was an outsider, recognising he was doing things differently, but he just leaned into it and he did it. And it took him on a different path where people just really appreciated him for who and what he was, what he represented, and we were much the richer for having benefited from his wisdom, his knowledge, and the way he thought and his thought process. And like, I'm really interested, Zach, getting into the Irish language. And like you said, Donal, it's a well that never runs dry. Even what you said there about the coming to the poetry maybe from the 9th century, you think you've cracked something new. It's kind of soul destroying when you realise, oh no, they were onto this centuries ago. But how has that understanding and even getting into Irish developed you as a person and also as a musician? Because there's so much depth there. Couple of focail inis ó lucht áirithe na seachtaine seo music at Maddens. Some words from our sponsors this week on the podcast, and they say there's music in every pint. Smithwick's has been brewed in Kilkenny since 1710. It carries centuries of craft, a ruby red ale with notes of caramel, roasted malt, poured smooth and rich, and it's the taste that's been part of Irish sessions for generations, where stories are told and music is made. So whether you're at Maddens or listening from home, raise a glass and let the tradition play on. Smithwick's is brewed true and shared together, and please drink responsibly, for over 18s only.
You know, when you are learning a new language in school, like French or Spanish, and then you have to do like a wee accent as well. And then when you learn Irish, you're like, oh, I don't have to put on.
Just be me.
Yeah, it's it fits right in your mouth. No, it's been a great journey for me, and there's a great terrace on the Newton Ards Road, run by Linda Irvine. She's an amazing woman who's done great things, and her exploration of the Irish language relationship in like the Presbyterian Protestant communities has really brought up some really interesting stories about Presbyterians preserving the language through history, and but I've just I just keep coming back to, it's a bizarre feeling when you learn something that feels like yours already,
and you're only coming to it like but it's again it's the constant, and it's been there for so long, but it needs to be handled, it needs to be played with, it needs to be like thrown around and used and broken and fixed again, and that's the same with all culture. And there was a recent Agóid Náisiúnta in Dublin. I went along to it, and being part of these like thousands and thousands of people walking up O'Connell Street, as the length of O'Connell Street, with the Dram Jarrig, with the red t-shirts, and like that there's something happening. There's another revival of the language, and that's that's what it takes. It needs to happen again and again to keep it alive. And I suppose we're on the cusp of it now. It's been brewing. People like Manchán Magan have been. He was just sort of doing his own thing, and we all edged in closer and closer to his path. And I think that's what made him so special. He was just sort of doing his wild, crazy stuff, and seeing the mainstream response to his tragic passing has been, like, I think he's become a legend, and he's going to be one of those people quote for the next few decades.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking to our kids, being like, oh yeah, I remember when he was just this white, like, crazy guy on podcasts and doing mad TV shows. So yeah, I think a legend's been born. Yeah.
But and you're absolutely right. And then to go back to what you're doing with music, and particularly with the Irish language being at the heart of it, and the Ulster songs as well. You've been true to that from the very, very start. This is who you are, what you're about, and like you say, breaking things apart, putting them back together again, and then coming at it from the perspective of choral music. The harmonies have all been there, and you're not afraid to revisit songs that maybe had become standards either. Like, and I'm thinking about your version of Doulaman, where Clannad had taken that on. And it's really interesting there, the similarities, because the reason why they leaned into the harmonies was because of their mother's background in the choral music. She led the choir in Gweedore. That's how they got into it. And then you can see you've come at it in exactly the same way, just with a different choir, and in your own way. So, revisiting that song, then recognising the Newry connection to it too, or down Carlingford Loch, Donal, and again you're getting under the lid of these songs and bringing them into the local. Like, is it, how enriching is that, or has that process been for you?
Well, there is some tension in it, I think, and it's a sort of personal inquiry. So, we're trying to work out our place in this tradition, having not grown up in fully traditional sort of families, like trad music families that are, playing flutes and whistles from
around the kitchen table.
Oh yeah, and like that's something that we've never been part of. Like, I grew up, my mother was an Irish speaker, and her parents had been Irish speakers, growing up as teachers in Banbridge, when speaking Irish was sort of a choice, a quite dangerous choice in that time. So that's there's a radical element of what they were doing, and it kept the language alive. My granny was a teacher, but a harp teacher, and she kept young harpers coming through. So like that was all part of my upbringing, and but so was choral music and singing. So I suppose you build your musical skills based on what you're exposed to, and where you find your niche and your comfort zone. So singing in harmony. I have 3 brothers, so does Zach. So like, singing in parts in the back of the car just was what we did, and we all went through choirs, and it was a range of different types of music, whether it was like medieval plain chant or arrangements of the Beatles, whatever it was. It went to school in St Coleman's in Newry under Sinead Frame, who did a great job in terms of bringing teenage boys to sing like really challenging stuff. Mozart's Requiem, Fauré's Requiem, really enriching stuff. But there was always an appreciation of like the Irish language, and was part of a choir called Corn and No Cashlan Newry, Eilish Farrell and Siobhan O'Dwyer, who that was all kind of Irish language stuff. We entered in the Ceol drama, and we competed around Ireland, and went abroad and did it as well. So there was lots of different elements, but I never felt like I belonged in the trad, genre or whatever, in the trad culture. But people like Padraig Newclan, through her research, and that's where we picked up the Doulaman story, and like that's amazing because that makes it accessible. So as long as you can read that book, which is very hard to come by, it's still like gold dust in itself. It's a tome, and it's unbelievable. It's all these amazing histories and legacies, and how the songs have been passed down, and different lyrics and stuff, different versions. But through that, then I found that it was had the mention of Newry in it, and therefore gave me an extra reason to maybe try and learn it, or maybe just feel connected to it. But for every song that we do, there's that element of research involved, and I think that's what gives it that extra meaning. We're looking to dig a little bit deeper in it, not in order to distill the tradition, but maybe just to try and make it personal to us.
Yeah.
And again, there's probably tension in that, which...
Well, but what way do you mean tension? Like, I think it's interesting that the two of you are now describing how you feel like outsiders of this tradition.
Yeah.
That is so celebrated, and you know the community's huge. Everybody's trying to find their place in it, and you know there would be people who think, oh God, that's not for me. You know, and you're right. You know, I wasn't brought up in it. I'm reticent to use snobbery, but it might be snobbery. I don't know that there's an exclusivity to it. Whereas what you're doing is breaking it down and saying, no, it's for everybody. And I think that's a really important message. It's really important work what you're doing.
I think that's where Mike's great strength is, because we can, you know, you said about tackling a song that's been done many times, like Dulaman, but sure, I may have heard that, but Mike,
I'd never heard it.
had never heard it before, so it doesn't matter to him.
He hadn't really listened to Clannad at all, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, didn't really know Clannad. Yeah, like, you know,
I'm
like...
joking.
But it's... That freshness is so...
Yeah.
It's a core ingredient. For
So,
what
so
True is.
it doesn't matter that it's been done 100 times by 100 different people, because we just, when we bring a song, say we brought that to Mike, he's just, his response to it is so valuable to us and so valuable to the band, because it's rare that a band performing
Doing this stuff will
folk
have...
trad music, somebody in the band, or maybe two people in the band, wouldn't have heard one of the biggest songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it shouldn't, on one side you're thinking like, okay, that shouldn't work, but then it's actually one of our greatest strengths, because then Mike can see what we can't see. He just can take a song at face value and go, that, you know, as Donald said, yay or nay.
And that's something, you know, I've learned. Like, he's just hearing a song, and the art form that is a song, he's just hearing it at face value, like you said. So the baggage, the cultural baggage you carry in, no, but this is like 300 years old.
Don't care.
Is it good? Is it a good song?
Yeah.
And if it's a good song, that's why it survived. But some, you know, there's, just because it survived, there are different reasons for that, and that's why you choose which reasons you want to align with for a song to survive. So I think that's the sort of the recreation and the...
It's a brilliant point, because you can't overthink things. You can really overthink the like, I've done that when choosing playlists for radio programs. Most people don't care. They just want to hear a good song. They just want to hear good music. But you're wondering, but the reason I'm choosing this is, and it has to be, and it has to be. And it doesn't sometimes. Sometimes you just need to strip it back and let it go and just let it be very, very simple. But your curiosity for songs, though, and stories and learning from traditions has led you elsewhere as well throughout your the couple of albums you've released so far. Scotland particularly, you choose to celebrate Ulster Scots and Gaelic song from Scotland. Again, it doesn't matter if it's a good song, it's a good song. So tell me about that. Why does Scotland resonate with you particularly? I don't know, have you done Welsh music as well? Has there been something from
Haven't
Wales?
tackled Wales yet.
But Japan was in there somewhere, wasn't it?
Yes, there was the story of the Yuki-onna, who were snow spirits in Japanese folklore. That was in a song called The Woodsman from our first album, No Fixed Abode. But Scotland has been a big one for us, I suppose, just because, you know, Ulster and Scotland, you know,
close proximity,
essentially that sort of, you know, the old kingdom of Dariata, essentially the same place.
Yeah, it feels very like much a sister culture in so many ways, and I mean
the extension.
Sure, it really does. It feels close, but also just the melody. I think the songs, Scottish melodies, are class.
And that song, Newry Boat Song, the first song on our first album, is somebody sailing from Scotland to Newry. Isn't that right? I haven't listened to that in years now. But.
There's connection. It was collected on one of the Scottish islands, but it's called Newry Boat Song. I think it's about leaving and thinking back to a girl back in Newry, and then she's lamenting her Donal, her Donal who's left her. So it's like a sort of emigrant song, but a love song, unrequited love as well.
But
it's a Scottish version, and there was a Scots Gaelic version that we heard first.
Yeah, and I think that took to it because of this outside view of Ireland. A trad song with from outside Ireland, but about Newry is really interesting if you break it down like that. And and if you listen to those walking songs, it's like unbelievable music.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic singing.
And again, you're getting down into that deep connection with the people
Mm-hmm.
and the place, because they would have been, singing those songs while they were at work, while they were doing a particular thing. And then the songs are mostly of place, about particular people in the place, sometimes not very favourable towards the people of the place. But it tells so much, there's so much personality in them. And then, in terms of your music then, you've progressed in so many different ways over the two albums, and then you've two new songs you've just released there too, Nora and the Swan. So tell me about that, because you started off, and again it is very you're trying different things, and then the second album you're leaning into a wee bit more into country. There's kind of, I think you just got, my understanding of it was you got a wee bit more confident. Just, give it a go. What have we got to lose here? If it works, it works. And it did. It was fabulous, particularly your version of the old long black veil. So talk me through that and that evolution.
Yeah, well, I think if anyone hits pause and goes over and listens to our music now, picking any random song, it probably won't strike them as a trad song or a folk song even. There's influences that are much more, there's sort of alternative rock sounds, there's a bit of country stuff. Then the a cappella vocal stuff can be a real mix of different sounds as well. We're just trying to bring our own influences, the music that we love to make and want to make, and we're sort of layering it over these old songs. Some of those sound a little bit traddy, some of them really don't. But also we've been writing more, so one of the differences from No Fix to Bow to Eternally Near was that we had more original material. Nearly half the second album was original, and the two songs we just released are original, and then there's a third which is an English trad song called The Mole Catcher, which is just coming out very shortly, in a few weeks. So we still really love that mix. But to give you an example, like the recent song The Swan, which is just out, it is based on a traditional lullaby from the Basque country. So that is a traditional melody, or an element of it, which inspired a melody which was inspired by a different lyrical idea. And then that became The Swan. But the early stuff was very much local, and we were delving into where we're from. We're working out where our place is. Eternity Near was a bit more expansive. We had an American song, Long Black Veil, in there. And although the version that we sort of associated with was the Chieftains version, so there was an Irish, connection to it. But yeah, we sort of, in studio, we played around more on the second album. So like I said, it's kind of half trad, half original, but the original stuff maybe is more owing to stuff like the Beatles or just music that we love to make.
And you're leaning in now to the personal stories, because the Swan, the sentiment behind that song is very, very deep, and it's about the loss of a parent. Can you tell me about that and why you wanted to tackle the big emotions like this?
Well, I think so. If you're writing songs, and we would try to keep writing as much as possible, and I think that's the key, is to just always write and try to see. And there's going to be terrible songs, crap stuff. And occasionally you'll land on something that is working. Have
you got a notebook just full of scribbles, have you?
Yeah. And
just voice recordings.
Voice. Most of my phone is just blocked up by crap demos. But I mean, I had the melody there, this Basque lullaby, and then a friend of mine, she lost her mother, her only parent, and seeing her response to that up front was, it floored her, but it nearly floored me, just observing what happened to her. Her whole world just shattered. I suppose if you're the only child of one parent, that's it's like your son. It's just the sun is extinguished and you're left in the darkness. And yeah, just that was playing on my mind a lot. And it happens to most people. It's one of those universal experiences. And strangely, it hasn't happened to the band. 3 of us and all 6 parents are still about. but it's inevitable as well. So leaning into that and trying to express the confusion and the grief against this beautiful lullaby, and then just the song came then.
What did your friend make of it when she heard it?
I haven't told her. But that's inspired by her.
Donald, she might be listening to this podcast.
She might. I'll do it in private. But sometimes the nerve is raw, even for me. You know, that nerve, whatever touched, and it's sometimes that personal element. Even though I'm removed, it's still raw for me. So, do you ever find that, like, you know, if you're trying to go towards something, even if it's once it's written and it's recorded and it's done, I suppose that's what you're tapping into in performance. You need to keep something there to access, and I think if I give that away, or yeah, I don't know, maybe I haven't thought about it fully.
And how did you react to the song, Zach?
Yeah, it's one of my favourite lyrics, because I think Donal, I'm trying to remember how it came about. You had the lyrics maybe, and maybe
Usually we would sit down and Zach would have the guitar.
You had the lyrics and the melody.
And then would work out the structure and arrangement with a wee acoustic guitar. Was it in Donegal, in Bundoran maybe? Zach lived in Bundoran for a few years.
Yes, and I remember you coming up, and it was one of those ones that
during COVID.
One of those ones that pretty much was done within 10 minutes. You know, because it was just, I think it's this kind of chord, and then the guitar part came. Well, it's very simple. It's a very simple song. So, but when songs like that are tackling such deep emotions, you don't really need to do much.
You have to get out of the way of it.
Yeah, it's just you want to present it and no more. You know, so you're just like, okay, that's it, and then it's almost, you're almost scared to touch it, you know, in ways.
You're almost as well giving it over to the listener to interpret it whatever way they want, and obviously that's what we do with all music. But I think with songs that tap into something that is so personal yet universal, as you said, Donal, it's something that we'll all experience if we haven't already. That it's a big one, and I'd say in the live context as well, people maybe hearing that for the first time when you explain the premise. Do you think, you know, because as a band you're renowned for your live performances, and does that change the dynamic then of the song for you whenever you see the reaction and how they connect with people?
Well, we haven't actually played the song, the Swan live yet, so
yeah, this is going to be the first one. We've got a string of dates now before Christmas, and then a few more after, so that's
going to be a big one for you.
Yeah, I mean, live is everything. That's where the song exists. So I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be, I think the songs we choose obviously are reflecting some element of our own personalities and like what we're striving for or looking for in our lives. But there is a lot of, that sort of tenderness, and then there's a lot of that sort of big energy on stage as well, because there's like electric guitars involved, which you wouldn't get, you know, in the same way alongside these other folk songs. So there's quite a range of stuff, but at the core is the 3-part vocal. So whenever the three of us are harmonizing on stage, that's where it's happening.
And you know, we talked there about the emotions and bringing the personal to the universal. You know, in true folk style, you're not afraid to tackle world events either through your music. I don't know, Mike had a personal connection with Ukraine, particularly when the war broke out, and unfortunately it's still raging, and you know, you felt the need as a band then to put some music out there. I know he did some work where he travelled over to Ukraine himself and felt that draw, understandably, to his family and his heritage, and Palestine as well. You know, you've also spoken out about that through your music. You know, tell me about the power that you find, or maybe has it been cathartic for you as a group to contribute your voice and, you know, to global events as well?
Yeah, I was down in Dublin there yesterday for the big rally. That was 20,000 people. And there's
this was for Palestine?
For Palestine, yeah. So we marched from the Garden of Remembrance across the Liffey and into up Dawson Street, and the power of 20, I think it was 20,000 people, just with one voice, is really something really special. And then it goes back to what sort of, for me, it goes back to what sort of world do we want to live in, and we have the power to make things happen, to change.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was nearly 2 years ago. We were doing a BBC show, and we, brought the flag on stage, and at that time, like, there was obviously so much support for it, but there's been so much momentum in the last 2 years. It's catastrophic to say that. But like when the Ukraine war broke out, Michael almost instantly, or without missing a beat, he just felt this pull, like you said, Lynette. He jumped into a van, filled it up with humanitarian supplies, and he drove to Ukraine, to his region where his family's from. His grandfather got out of Ukraine in the 40s as a young man, and ended up in Scotland and in England where his father grew up. But he went over twice, I think, to Ukraine. Just drove over, and these videos of at the border, hundreds of vehicles, queuing up to get in. And that was something he had to do. He didn't really talk about it that much. He just had to do it. Just went there, and he connected with his heritage, and connected with a Ukrainian woman living in Belfast or Lisburn, and she was talking about some songs, and we ended up addressing a song called Plena Kacha, and we had her in studio with us one day, and we just said, right, let's record this song as a fundraiser for what Mike was doing and for the cause. And that was a special day because she was there knowing that her family was back in the war zone. She was helping us with the translation and with the pronunciation and stuff, and also explaining what the song meant. And it was an anti-war song about a soldier speaking to his mother, knowing that he'll never see her again. And it's apparently a very well-known song in Ukraine. So again, we really wanted, that's exactly this type of song that speaks to us, and in that context we knew we had to do it. And the response has been great to it, and the experience of doing it has been really positive for us. And whenever we do mention it to Ukrainians who are over here, or even we meet abroad, there's a significance to that as well. I think that's what songs can do. That's what music does, and art connects people.
It's that sense of solidarity that you can bring through music. Yeah,
but just as I was saying there, it doesn't do anything in the same sentence. It's not doing anything, and other things need to happen. So I think it can fill people with hope, or give people hope, and maybe that's all that we can do. But it's so. It's humbling.
Terrible. It's humbling to feel that you need to make the music. You need to connect in this way. But then to realise that there's nothing you can do. You're trying your best. You want things to change, but you don't have the power. But people raising their voices the way they do together, maybe, but then that might be just hopeful and wistful, but it's maybe the only thing we can do, the only thing that's going to keep us sane, I think, in these terrible times.
Well, like that, 20,000 people in Dublin, they were singing songs together. It all comes down to those moments, I suppose, and if they have the songs to sing, then that is where the solidarity comes from. But yeah, I mean, that's where we gain a lot of meaning ourselves, and I suppose that can unlock understanding and empathy as well, especially for a culture that you might not know.
Yeah.
So there's been, an appreciation of a lot of Palestinian music recently as another way of accessing and understanding a culture. The poetry is just unbelievable stuff that we're able to access through translations on social media and stuff. And the same with the Ukrainian song. We were able to just connect with what was happening with the people in a different way. And again, not that it achieves anything, but just the experience is meaningful, and I suppose it can show solidarity.
Can, for sure. Speaking there about bringing people together and that sense of connection, we've spoken a lot about where you're coming from, where you choose your songs and you record your songs. What about the audiences and people listening to your music? What is the reaction there? Have you found that people are discovering new things about places, people through the work you're doing? And I can only imagine that that's extremely rewarding.
Yeah, you get people coming up to you after a gig and be like, I never heard that song, or I know a different version of that song, and all these little interesting tidbits that you hear, that it's sort of, and these songs can inspire within people, and but like Donald said earlier, I think the live show is where it really comes together for us, and I find that sometimes when we're singing a song, it can even, the particular context of or the way an audience is, the atmosphere of a particular audience can change how the song lands or change the meaning of a song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, I didn't know that this song had that layer to it, or that context to it. Like I remember one of our songs, Rebel Song. I remember it when we were in America last
summer.
It's always, I love performing that song, and it's always.
Tell us about the song, just in case anybody doesn't know it. If they're not familiar with it, go to Bandcamp and check it out.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, but tell me about Rebel Song.
Rebel Song is comes from, there's you're better on history.
Okay. So
and then I'll jump in after.
Rebel Song is based on a melody that people would be familiar with. It's the Patriot Game, which is a Behan song. But before that, it was a trad melody for hundreds of years. So it's one of these that's been repurposed. And Dylan repurposed it then after the Behan song when the Clancy brothers took it over, sang it in Carnegie Hall, and he turned it into God on Our Side, which was an anti-war song about Vietnam. And that obviously was a massive hit as well. So this melody has been floating around, and it inspired kind of another protest sentiment. This was around Brexit was happening, so we wanted to write something that was a response, and just thought that melody was perfect for it. Between the Patriot Game and the God on Our Side, that's where the sentiment came from. So I wanted to stick to that melody, and then we were able to sing it at the Northern Ireland Music Prize when we were up for Best Album, and the feeling in the room that night was amazing, because people do know it when they hear it, but then they realise, wait, this is a different version, these are new lyrics, and
then they listen to the lyrics,
and then the lyrics are heard, and then we've adapted it, and there's a different element to the performance. But then we took it to America then.
Yeah, so that song's always been a favourite of mine and a highlight in the set for me. And then we took it to America, and we've been dedicating the song to the Palestinian people, and then we did the same thing in America, and there were some audiences that were not into that.
These are Irish Americans.
Irish Americans, yeah. and we're an Irish band coming over, and we the hostility we received, walkouts, people shouting stuff at us, and the song becomes. It's the first time that song became like confrontational, which I never thought that could be possible. But then it becomes, but then it feels important to do it anyway. When you're playing a song and the audience, they're not on your wavelength, but you have to do it anyway.
How do you respond to that?
You just keep singing.
My gosh, to imagine that just would happen to you, And again, like when you mentioned playing it at the Ulster Hall, you would have thought maybe just before that performance in the Ulster Hall, you might have been a wee bit nervous. How's this going to go down? How will this be received? But yet, not in the Ulster Hall. It had to go to America.
We had to do it. It was like, we have to do this. We had to do that song. We had to do Doulaman.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there was any other Irish spoken that night, and we wanted to make sure that this was represented.
Yeah.
And a song that people might know as well, and people went wild at it. because
Yeah.
they knew it, and it's one of those songs people get behind. And then we did Rebel Song after. But to that point, like, it can heighten the experience of performing it to the point where some of our material and stuff like Urcha Cragan, which we've done with you before, like, it actually can be an out of body experience with it. There is a highly spiritual element of that song, it being an Ashling song.
Yeah.
An Ashling song it's a type of poem that was written around sort of 1800s, where a spirit, that the poet encounters a spirit and has a conversation. It was quite a nationalist device, so usually the Ashling character would represent Ireland, and it was about what Ireland was becoming and what Ireland could be, this dream vision. It was kind of what the independence movement was based on. The poets in the early 20th century were all, you know, reared on that type of poetry. And this is one of the big ones, Urcha Cragan. But I've had experiences singing that where I've just been transported.
Yeah, I've the same. And then you realise that, all right, this is our sacred music.
But this is where you are. This is where True bring, is that gatekeepers to the other world. That's who the True were, and it does seem like it's the best name you could have ever chosen for your music, because you're living it. You're creating in exactly in that vibe and in that vein that you should be. And I wondered, you know, with the other world, and we'll finish on this, does that bring is there a freedom in that you're existing almost in the other world? Is there a freedom of expression and agency in that for you as musicians?
That's a good question. Just as you said, the word freedom, it's almost sacredness, the sanctity of it. It means it's maybe the opposite. There's a reverence to it. And I think although we're trying to bring different musical ideas in, and we want to make, you know, music that expresses our individuality, which is, you know, as children of the 20th century or whatever, growing up, but we have this respect that we've learned, that we have researched. It is sort of, it's a pursuit, you know, to actually try and understand it, because it's not always that readily accessible. But I think that's where the reward comes, when you do dig and you spend a few years singing a song and you learn about it from performance. It's not a freedom, it's a sort of, it's something that you can earn that way. That's what I feel anyway.
Something to aim for. I think that, because when you have those feelings in performance, you realize, okay, this is what is important, and this is what we're striving for. And then I suppose it makes it easier in that it's just simple, you know. It sort of all comes down to these just amazing songs.
And no better place to leave it. Oh, this has been great. Thanks so much for coming in and joining us on Music at Maddens. Zach Troughton, Donal Carney from True, and you can follow True on socials for gig dates. Do check them out live, and all the music is on Bandcamp as well. Gur míle maith agah.
Come on, get in.